Let's just imagine for a moment that you're in a city, a large city, potentially a coastal city, and there is an emergency alert that comes on your phone. And it says something to the effect that there is either a tidal wave coming, there's a missile strike coming, some catastrophic event is going to take place in the next few minutes. Now, let's change the story a little bit to there is potential threat in the next day or two of something, or there's been a catastrophe. And what is the plan? What is the way that you're going to survive this scenario? There's a very important reason that we're asking this question right now, and that is because the Bible is warning God's people ahead of time that destruction is coming to the cities, that we should expect to see judgments coming upon the wicked cities, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, when Lot had to flee the city in order to escape the judgment. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of different things and really try and focus in on when do we need to do this, and also why do we actually need to do this? Is this something that is necessary? Do we need to leave the city? And is it even that important? Is this part of actually the biblical final events? Are God's people to leave cities? Or is this just, a save your skin sort of scenario? This is a really important thing. We know that there is several events coming down the line, and in Revelation, there's several different events like this mentioned. There is this time of no buying and no selling. There's a time of trouble such as never was. There's a time of the plagues that these are going to be poured out on the world. There is destruction in the cities. There is all sorts of calamities. There's wars and rumors of wars. There's pestilence. There's famines. There's all these things are going to take place. What should God's people be doing to not partake in these things, not partake in the judgments that are going to fall on the world? Well, there's a couple really clear things that we have to address and that we have to be thinking about. When a catastrophe happens, if we just think for a minute, the timeline of events that happens in a city, if we think of the gas station, if we think of the grocery store, if we think of any of these things, how long is there food on the shelf for? When something happens, there's really only a 3-day supply in most grocery stores. Same thing in fuel stations. Now, when a catastrophe comes or happens, and let's say it doesn't destroy the whole city, you really only have a day because everybody's aware. Everybody's at heightened attention, and they're going there to get what they need. The other thing that takes place is martial law gets enforced, and they start locking down the city. This is actual protocol. So, for example, in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, which is close to where Mason Discoveries used to be located, which is why we left that city. There is different highways, different roads that span the lower mainland, as it's called. And a lot of these are disaster response routes. And there's different military bases that get deployed at different stations. And this is the same for all coastal cities, all major cities. I mean, it happened in Haiti. It happened in lots of places where they just locked things in. You couldn't come in. You couldn't go out. So how do we avoid these things if we know that they're coming to these cities? This is the important question that we're going to answer today. Now, I want to remind everyone that this is live. So if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments below, or on the sides, wherever it is on the platform you are. We're on several platforms, as well as if you know someone who has questions like this or might be blessed by this study, please share the link with them. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to our newsletter, Prophecy Newsletter, so that you get the study notes. All the quotes that we're using today are in the study notes, and we're sorry they were a little bit late today. We have a lot going on here right now. I might tell you guys about that later in the program, but if you check your email now, it should be there. So let's consider some of the different context here, and why I'm bringing this up and why I feel this is such an important topic. We are living amid the perils of the last days. How many of you guys would agree that we are living in the last days? If you believe that, put an amen in the chat. The wrath of God is preparing to come upon all the cities. What is the wrath of God? Well, if we look in Revelation, and we go to Revelation 14, this is part of the third angel's message. Revelation 14 and verse 10. Let's start in verse 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his marks, if you receive the mark of the beast in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture. So this wine of the wrath of God is going to be poured out on the people with the mark of the beast. Now, if we continue to Revelation 16, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And Revelation 16 is all about the 7 last plagues. So we're seeing here the wrath of God is prepared to come upon all the cities. Well, this is something that we should really be aware of, because if we do not want to receive of the plagues, because God's people are not supposed to receive of the plagues, that's a very important point. And the plagues and the wrath of God is being poured on the cities. Now, how do we qualify these two things? Not all at once, but one after another. And if the terrible punishment in the one city does not cause the inhabitants of the other cities to be afraid and seek repentance, their time will come when the Lord ariseth to shake terribly the earth. He will not cease until his work in punishment is done. Why? Because the wrath of God, Revelation 16, is being poured out without mercy. This is the difference between the 7 last plagues and the 10 plagues of Egypt, is those were still mixed with mercy. But these 7 last plagues are not mixed with mercy. And they'll be poured out until what they have sown and they're reaping, their reward is complete. We are living in the very last days of this earth's history. The terrible calamities that have recently visited our country show that the judgments of the Lord are falling on the world. The destruction of these cities is a warning to us to prepare for what is coming upon the earth. Now, I want to pose a question, because a lot of people, they think that the destruction on the cities and all these things are only going to happen after probation has already closed. So is that the case? In the future, there will be broken thrones and great distress of nations with perplexity. Satan will work with intense activity. The earth will be filled with the shrieks of suffering, expiring nations. This is quite the statement. There will be war, war. The places of the earth will be in confusion as from its bowels pour forth its burning contents to destroy the inhabitants of the world, who in their wickedness resemble the inhabitants of the antediluvian world. So let's just pick out some of the really important things that are in this statement. Okay? We're living in the very last days. Now, destruction on these cities is a warning. We're going to circle this word warning to prepare for what is coming upon the earth. This is really important, that what is happening, the destruction of the cities we're seeing right now, is a warning to God's people to prepare for the next destructions coming. In the future, there will be broken thrones and great distress of nations. Distress of nations with this is a literal thing we're seeing. Satan will work with intense activity. The earth will be filled with shrieks of suffering, expiring nations. What does expiring nations mean? There will be war, war. This is quite the scene. And what are God's people supposed to do about it? You know, when we look at all the examples of the Old Testament and throughout the Bible of the different people who are warned about things coming, whether it be Lot, whether it be Noah, whatever it might be, they all had something to do. They needed to prepare for what was coming. They needed to take action, like in the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. How many of you know this story? So Jesus was speaking, and he was in Matthew 24, and he was telling about what was going to happen on Jerusalem. And he told them that when you see these certain signs, it's not a sign that destruction is coming and you should do nothing. It was a sign that destruction is coming. Therefore, you need to take decided action to leave the city. So if you know destruction is happening on a city, leave it. That is the consistent, that is the all-pervading instruction given. If you see destruction happening, you're supposed, or going to take place, rather. If you see destruction going to take place, you need to take action and you need to prepare for what is coming. So these are warnings to us. Also, there's going to be war and war. This is why the thumbnail has what it has. How are we going to survive what's coming? Now, what's coming is destruction upon the earth, but it's not only destruction because God is just raining it from heaven. No, this is destruction coming because there's going to be war. There's going to be unrest of nations. There's going to be shrieks of suffering, expiring nations, which means there's going to be nations destroying other nations. So there is going to be events like we've never seen. And that's what it says in Daniel 12, verse 1, the time of trouble such as never was. And that time of trouble doesn't just instantly happen overnight. These are a buildup of events that are going to take place. So long as God gives me power to speak to our people, I shall continue to call upon parents to leave the cities and get homes in the country where they can cultivate the soil. This right here, we could almost stop. The problem is most people don't even understand what this statement is actually saying. So we have a lot more to talk about. But it says, as long as God gives me power, I'm going to tell parents to leave the cities and get homes in the country where they can cultivate the soil. I find this fascinating. Most people are going to breeze over this. They're not even going to notice what's being said here. But I take note of these tiny little word details. We're supposed to study here a little and there a little, line upon line. And it's no different with the spirit of prophecy. We need to look at the tiny little words that are said in every single verse and quote. So here we have leaving the cities and homes in the country. Now, what is defined by the word country? And I think I can highlight here. That does not look very good. We're going to circle the word country. What is country? Is country just a smaller town? Is country where you can see some trees? Is country, in the fields and in the plains? Is country in the forest? Is country in the Everglades? Is it, in the desert somewhere? Is it in the mountains? Is it in the caves? What does this mean? What's this word country? And here's the problem. A lot of people just like to put their own idea and own interpretation on something. I prefer to study out what this means. What is being said by this? When the Bible tells us to get into the country, what does it mean when it says country? Is it just wherever you feel is countryer than where you are now? Well, I think we should ask more questions. Now, the next one is where they can cultivate the soil. Now, this is a little bit controversial when you talk about no-tilling and stuff like this. Well, how does this apply? Especially when you read in Genesis where it says that you must till the soil now. Does that mean that we should, just pulverize the dirt? What is all these things? And what does cultivating entail? Especially in context of when this was written 150 years ago. What was the main way of cultivation? Was that with a rototiller? Well, they weren't invented yet. Was a tractor? That wasn't invented yet. So how did they do this? I'm just posing some questions here. Let's continue. And learn from the book of nature the lessons of purity and simplicity. The things of nature are the Lord's silent ministers, given to us to teach us spiritual truths. So we need to be in nature to have our characters right and learn these spiritual truths. They speak to us of the love of God and declare the wisdom of the great master artist. Zephaniah 1:14-16. The great day of the Lord is near. What is the day of the Lord? Well, if we go back to Revelation, we don't have to guess. A lot of people will guess what this is. And this is not a great day. This is not a day of worship. So this is not the day of the Lord as in like the Sabbath day. This is a day of wrath. This is that kind of gives it away. Actually, the next verse, the day is a day of wrath. Well, what's the wrath of God? Well, this is the plagues that are being poured out. So this great day of the Lord, well, let's take a look. Let's go to Revelation 18. Revelation 18, and let's read in verse 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. One day. Now, is this a literal day? Or is this word, now we're talking Revelation 18 here. This is a prophecy. So in prophecy, a day represents a what? And I'm sure there's going to be 100 people in the chat who can answer this. Ezekiel 4:6, Numbers 14:34, it says that a day represents a year. So if this is the day of the Lord, the day of the plagues come in one day, that means they come within 1 year. Okay? Is near, it is near. and hasteneth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord. Oh, my session kicked me out right in the middle again. I feel like if you're using it, it should know to leave you logged in. Okay. Sorry about that. That should give everyone a time to copy the link, send it to a friend, share it, find your Bibles to make sure that you're able to follow along, because you shouldn't take anything that I'm saying without comparing it with the Bible. You need to make sure that you're reading along and that I'm not misquoting anything. You know, we need to be really honest Bible students. Okay. Let's see, where do we pick up? Where do we pick up here? Mighty man shall cry there bitterly. Verse 15, that day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble. So there's this trouble, the time of trouble that we're seeing, and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation. So there's desolation taking place, a day of darkness. So there's darkness in here. I could talk about these verses for hours. We would use up all our time just on this verse, just on this section here. And maybe we should. Maybe I'll come back to this. If someone has questions on these, put it there and remind me. We'll continue a little bit because there's some other things I want to get to. Put some questions regarding this. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. What is all this darkness? What is all the desolation? What is all the gloominess? Where is it coming from? Why is it there? All of these questions. We don't ask enough questions. As Bible students, we read and we're like, oh, okay, it's trouble and distress and gloominess. It's bad stuff. That's it. It's bad stuff. Is that all it is? Or is there more to each of these words? The Bible doesn't miss words. It uses specific words for specific reasons. A day of the trumpet. Now I could go off on that again. An alarm against the fenced cities. There's a whole nother layer to this. That's in connection with Revelation 18. And against the high towers, there again, Revelation 18, Isaiah. We get all of this amazing information. Revelation chapter 9, the woes. All of this is inside these few verses in Zephaniah chapter 1. Just incredible. But what's happening here is there is alarm against the cities. And there's a warning, there's destruction, there's wrath. All of this is coming, and it's coming upon the cities. And turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample unto those that after should live ungodly. So this is an ensample for them living later. What is them turning into ashes? Which means there will be other cities that are going to be turned into ashes. 1 Corinthians 10, 1 Corinthians 10, verse 11. Now, all these things happen unto them for ensamples. Here's the same word. And they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So when we see all these stories in the Bible, they're all written so that we can have warning of what is coming on the world. They're not there just to have a great story, an allegory, anything like that. We're supposed to learn from them. We're supposed to be different because of them. And they're an example for what is going to happen at the end of the world. So, what happened to Sodom and is an example for what will happen to the cities at the end of the world. Now, we're going to take a look at what exactly took place around Sodom. And this is just a fascinating story. I mean, it's terrible at the same time. It's a terrible story. Unfortunately, it is so similar to what's happening right now. The same arguments, the same thought patterns. You're going to see this. This is just unbelievable. And the men said unto Lot, now these men, if you don't know the story, Jesus and two angels went to Abraham and said, we're going to destroy this city. And Abraham said, my nephew Lot is there. Can you please spare him? So Jesus sends the other two angels and they go. These are the men that are talked about here. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. So they're telling Lot, whatever you have, whoever you have, take them out of this place. For we will destroy this place. So if that's being destroyed, if you're inside, you destroyed too. I mean, this is just common sense and logic. Because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. So he said this message. What did his son-in-laws think? This crazy old guy is just talking catastrophism again. You know, how could this take place? Oh, this poor guy. Why did they not believe Lot? Is that not why did they not think that he was even serious? Why did they not take him that at least he was serious? Well, we're going to find out why. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot. So Lot literally went to them, told them it's going to be destroyed, and then went back home. If it was actually that dire, why didn't he leave right then? Because he really actually didn't believe that much, that it was that serious. Or maybe even if he thought it was serious, what was back there, it's hard to leave. Saying, arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, see, he was lingering. He was waiting. He wasn't rushing. He didn't have this urgency. So he goes to his sons-in-law and says, oh, the city's going to be destroyed. Get out now. And they're like, well, are you going out now? Well, no, I was going to go back to my place and, at least sleep and get a good rest. And, because, we don't want to be hasty, right? We want to, be clear, think clearly when we leave and all this stuff. That's not literally the words that Lot said. I'm just, working this through. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand and upon the hand of his wife and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Oh, this is getting a little bit specific now. So first he's supposed to leave the city, but then he's not even supposed to be in the plains. Escape to where? The mountain. Oh, MacKenzie, you're not saying that, are you? Well, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, O not so, my lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy. So now he's playing with the fact that God is having mercy with him, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. You saved me already. You're having such mercy on me, and I cannot escape to the mountain. Have you heard that before? Have you said that before? Lest some evil take me. There's cougars there, there's bears there. I mean, what if I go and I lose everything? What if the garden doesn't grow? What if, I lose my job? All of these things. What if some evil take me and I die? Does this not sound utterly ridiculous? He's arguing with what the angel said. But how often do we argue with the exact same thing? Because this is an example on those living at the end of the world. And are we making the same argument? Behold, now this city is near to flee unto. Oh, hey, right, just a couple hours away. There's a tiny city, and it is a little one. It's not a big city. It's not New York. It's not Philadelphia. It's not Los Angeles. It's just a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. They have big lots, Have you seen this? There's, you have a couple trees, you have space for like a little garden and stuff. It's practically country. I mean, like, is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. But if I try and go all out, straight to the mountains, surely that is the wrong thing to do. And Lot went out to warn his children. He repeated the words of the angels, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed to them as one that mocked. They laughed at what they called his superstitious fears. His daughters were influenced by their husbands. They were well enough off where they were. They could see no evidence of danger. Here's the problem. You've been there so long. You've been in the city so long. This isn't the most city. It's a larger lots. It's more trees, or it's a hilly, it's whatever it is. And you're making excuses. That's what Lot was doing here. They were well enough where they were. They could see no evidence of danger. Oh, even if something happens, this is the safe place in the city. Yeah, if there's something that's going to happen, it's going to happen over there, or it's going to happen over there. Not here. I mean, this is like basically the best place you could be. Everything was just as it had been. Oh, you're getting too worried. This has happened before. It's okay. There's still time. They had great possessions, houses. They had all the things that you could want. And they could not believe it possible that beautiful Sodom would be destroyed. Have you not seen Sodom, Uncle Lot? There's trees, there's fruit trees, there's palm trees, there's, they got ponds in the city with fish and ducks and swans and all this beautiful stuff. Lot returned sorrowful to his home and told the story of his failure. Then the angels bade him arise and take his wife and the 2 daughters who were yet in his house and leave the city. But Lot delayed. I wish I could put as much emphasis as I feel to you guys about not delaying. Though daily distressed at beholding the deeds of violence, he had no true conception of the debasing and abominable iniquities practiced in that vile city. Unless you are out for a time, you don't even see what's happening. Oh, this happens every day. Oh, yeah, it's just normal. It's not normal. It's terrible. He did not realize the terrible necessity for God's judgments to put a check on sin. He didn't even think it was that bad to deserve judgment. This is unbelievable. And how many of us are in a city right now and we think it's not that bad? This city doesn't deserve judgment. That city, oh yes, that one's really bad. Some of his children clung to Sodom, and his wife refused to depart without them. Family. I can't leave family. I can't move without them. What am I going to do? The thought of leaving those whom he held dearest on earth seemed more than he could bear. It was hard to forsake his luxurious home and all the wealth acquired by the labors of his whole life, to go forth a destitute wanderer. Why am I going to leave this and go into the country and put all my money into building up this thing when we're supposed to evangelize the city anyways, and we're supposed to do this, and God will protect us and everything else? Stupefied with sorrow, he lingered, loath to depart. But for the angel of God, they would all have perished in the ruin of Sodom. The heavenly messengers took him and his wife and daughters by the hand and led them out of the city. But Lot, confused and terrified. So was he excited to leave the city? Yes, thank you, angels, for saving us. Or was he, I'm going to die out here? Plead that he could not do as he was required, lest some evil should overtake him and he should die. Living in that wicked city, in the midst of unbelief, his faith had grown dim. Some people think it's faith to be in the city and that this magical bubble will come around you and God will protect you. That's not faith, that's presumption, because you don't want to leave. It is a lot more testing on your faith to try and move and believe that you will survive the journey. And I know that's a fact, and I know most people believe that that's a fact, because that is a lot of people's argument. Well, how are we going to do this? We didn't grow up doing this. You're telling us we need to leave the city. I'm not telling you anything. MacKenzie Drebit is saying nothing. He's reading the account, and he's showing 1 Corinthians 10:11, the ensamples and the things that are going to happen at the end of the world, which Jesus predicted in Matthew 24, the wars on this and the destruction on the cities, Zephaniah, all these things. Is nothing that I'm saying. The Prince of Heaven was by his side, yet he pleaded for his own life, as though God, who had manifested such care and love for him, would not still preserve him. He should have trusted himself wholly to the divine messenger, giving his will and his life into the Lord's hands, without a doubt or a question. But like so many others, he endeavored to plan for himself. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. The city here mentioned was Bela, afterward called Zoar. It was but a few miles from Sodom. In today's language, I'll convert for you, it was a couple hours from that city. And like it was, corrupt and doomed to destruction. So this is the thing. A lot of people will say, okay, sure, not New York, not LA, not the big cities, but What about this little town, this little city? According to this, doesn't work. You can't only be a couple hours out of the main cities. You have to be farther because he was going a couple hours from Sodom, but it wasn't far enough. And this was a small city, but it had the same doom that was going to come to it, the same destruction. So you can't just go a little smaller. We got so much that we can cover on this. Um, Talking about the size of the city, what are two? Here's the thing, though. We can do that, and we have all the references. I was gonna go into that today, but there's a lot to talk about as it is right now, and the main premise that we're seeing here is city X'd off. I mean, it's big, small, tiny, it doesn't matter. Where to go? Not into the plains, not into the prairies, not into these areas. It needs to be to the mountains. This is what the Bible is talking about through the whole Bible. Being in the mountains, that is the place of safety. And we can spiritualize and say mountains mean whatever and whatever. But if we want to take the Bible as it reads, which is what we are claiming to do, read the Bible literally, read it as it's written. Mountains is mountains. It's not mountains is something else. I mean, it's so clear here that not even the plains. Again, the solemn command was given to hasten, for the fiery storm would be delayed but little longer. But one of the fugitives ventured to cast a look. Pay attention right now. A look backward to the doomed city, and she became a monument of God's judgment. Here's the problem. Was she in Sodom when that happened? She wasn't even in Sodom, and she received judgment. Why? Because her heart was in Sodom. Why did she turn back? Because she wanted to go back. She had no intention of going to the mountains and living in some little hut and digging in the dirt after she had a beautiful house and a pool and a hot tub, and the fitness center was just down the road, and she had her favorite health food store here, and she helped with the choir at church and did all these things. This is something we really, really need to consider. She was being dragged out last minute, but it didn't help her. She didn't even get to where she was going because it was too much of a draw. If Lot himself had manifested no hesitancy to obey the angel's warning, but had earnestly fled toward the mountains without one word of pleading or remonstrance, his wife also would have made her escape. Here's the problem. We make excuses why we can't go straight to the country. No more excuses. If we want to follow God, you follow God, period. You don't go backwards. You're going to lose your family. It's just a little one. The influence of his example would have saved her from the sin that sealed her doom. But his hesitancy and delay, I just need, we're closing this deal. We're doing this. I have, we got to sell the house. We have to do all these things. Caused her to lightly regard the divine warning. Don't put your worldly affairs before obedience. Obedience above all else. While her body was upon the plain, her heart clung to Sodom, and she perished with it. She rebelled against God because his judgments involved her possessions and her children in the ruin. Although so greatly favored in being called out from the wicked city, she felt that she was severely dealt with because the wealth that it had taken years to accumulate must be left to destruction. Instead of thankfully accepting deliverance, she presumptuously looked back to desire the life of those who had rejected the divine warning. So she literally looked back at Sodom and she was jealous of the people who were literally going to be destroyed. Her sin showed her to be unworthy of life. That's heavy. For the preservation of which she felt so little gratitude. Do not be Lot's wife. Do not be Lot's wife. Do not be jealous of what the people have. Do not think, oh, I would have so much more time if I just didn't have to do this. It's such a slog. It's so much work. And I'm going broke here. I have no money left. I'm all this. There's a warning of God, and we must heed it. It doesn't matter. We need to give everything. The rich young ruler came and he said, I'm doing everything. I'm the best Adventist ever. I'm the most conservative Christian. I'm doing everything right. I'm vegan. I'm this. I'm that. I'm the other. Victory over sin, no problem. And Jesus says, sell all you have. And he's like, whoa. Not sure I can do that. Who will be warned? Who will be warned? We say again, out of the cities. And I'm sorry. This is, I understand. It's heavy. I understand that it's complicated. I understand that it costs everything. Your family, your friends, your money, your everything. But I would rather see you lose it all in obedience and go to the direction God wants than have you gain everything and lose your soul and your life in the city. Because here's the thing. If you're in the destruction that is coming for the wicked and you die in that destruction, you're not part of the righteous. I mean, do you think that Lot's son-in-laws who were in the city are counted righteous, martyrs? Absolutely not. They were disobedient. You can't die for the punishment of wicked and not be wicked. You can do all the right things, but if you don't want to follow in one tiny little point, Jesus will say, I never knew you, even though you did prophecy seminars. I prophesied in your name. I cast out demons in your name. I did all of these things. I didn't know you. It's a terrifying thing. And it's terrifying to think, how are you going to get out? And we're going to talk about this. But first things first, you have to feel the urgency and the weight of this situation. Why you need to do something. Do not consider it a great deprivation, and a lot of people do, that you must go into the hills and mountains. It doesn't say into the plains. It doesn't say into, the desert. It doesn't say into, it says hills and mountains. And I know this is a crazy thought. But seek for that retirement where you can be alone with God to learn his will and way. The Lord calls for his people to locate away from the cities, for in such an hour as ye think not. So you're not even going to expect it. It's not even going to be an hour when there's the most wickedness at that very moment that you'll notice. An hour you think not. Fire and brimstone will be rained from heaven upon these cities. Proportionate to their sins will be their visitation. When one city is destroyed, let not our people regard this matter as a light affair, and think that they may, if favorable opportunity offers, are you listening to this? Build themselves home in that same destroyed city. That city was destroyed for a reason. Don't go back there. You're supposed to be located away from the cities. If we place ourselves under objectionable influences, okay, pay attention to this one. Objectionable influences. If we place ourselves, can we expect God to work a miracle? Well, I'm going to put an X on that. To undo the results of our wrong course? No. Indeed, get out of the cities as soon as possible and purchase a little piece of land where you can have a garden, where your children can watch the flowers growing and learn from them the lessons of simplicity and purity. If you put yourself in the place where God said he's raining down destruction, and you think you're going to avoid the destruction by being in that place and staying there, you're mistaken. You're absolutely mistaken. I don't know any other way to say it. If you put yourself there, you expect God to work a miracle in disobedience? It's not going to happen. Lot would have been lost. He would have died. If Noah didn't build an ark, he would have died and he would have been lost. If in 70 AD, in the destruction of Jerusalem, Spirit of Prophecy says that not one Christian was in Jerusalem when the destruction happened, but there was millions who died. Well, they obviously weren't Christians because they weren't obedient to Christ when Christ gave the warning that destruction was coming. They didn't go into the mountains. Again, this theme comes repeating over and over and over. And some people might say, well, if God can protect me in the country, why can't he protect me in the city? Because God never promised to. God didn't promise to protect you in the place that he said he's destroying because it's so wicked. He said, I'll protect you in the place that I want you to be safe from these things. You can't go to the destruction and expect to not be destroyed. If you see a war happening, you're like, I'm just going to walk into the war zone. Well, expect to get hit. We need to be away from where destruction is coming. Let sentries be no longer made in the cities. Let children no longer be exposed to the temptations of the cities that are ripe for destruction. The Lord has sent us warning and counsel to get out of the cities. Then let us make no more investments in the cities. Fathers and mothers, how do you regard the souls of your children? That's a hard question. If I had children, I've said this before, I would be immediately gone. If my wife was pregnant and I was in the city, gone. I mean, my children's soul is more important than anything, than my job, than their education, in this fancy school, whatever it is. Get out. Find a piece of dirt that your children can grow in, that they can learn these lessons in the country away from all the other pollutants. Are you preparing the members of your family for translation into the heavenly courts? Are you preparing them to become members of the royal family? And if you have an unbelieving spouse, it doesn't matter. You take them with you. And if you have children, I pray for you. but you need to move. Children of the heavenly King, what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? I just realized that we didn't pray before we started at the start of the study. Now, we actually did because we always pray before we even start. So sometimes I forget when once everybody else joins on the live stream. Let's pray now because this is a heavy topic. Heavenly Father, we just pray for all your people. They're still in Babylon and they need to get out of the city. And you need to guide them. You need to give them strength. They don't even know what to do. They don't know how to proceed. But destruction's coming, and it's coming quickly, and it's coming faster than we can think in an hour that we don't even expect. I pray for all these people with families, with children. Their children are already getting attached to the city and to the wickedness. Lord, give them strength to make the moves they need to do to save their family before it's too late, with no hesitancy to flee the city so that they can save their families' lives and not lose it in the process. Lord, guide us as we continue to study. In Jesus' name, amen. What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? How will ease, comfort, convenience compare with the value of the souls of your children? If you have to own a hovel and live all in the same room, do it. If you have to live in a shop, do it. Do whatever it takes to be obedient and have your family in a place that's spiritually enlightening. This experience of the Israelites was written for the instruction of those who should live in the last days. That's what we read in 1 Corinthians 10:11. Before the overflowing scourge shall come upon the dwellers of the earth, the Lord calls upon all who are Israelites indeed to prepare for that event. We need to prepare. What example do we have in the Bible where nobody had to prepare for any warning? Never. To parents, he sends the warning cry, gather your children into your own houses, not one owned by the bank, by someone else, by all of this, in an apartment building, your own house. Gather them away from those who are disregarding the commandments of God, who are teaching and practicing evil. Get out of the large cities as fast as possible. It doesn't say slowly. It says as fast as possible. What is the fastest way out? From A to B. What is the shortest distance, most direct path to accomplish this? Establish church schools. Give your children the Word of God as the foundation of all their education. But if you're not even obedient, why do your children have to be obedient? The same thing with Lot. He warned them, destruction is coming. Sunday law is coming. This is all going to happen. Time of trouble is coming. Plagues are going to fall. And what are you doing? Nothing. Life as usual, living where you are, doing the things you're doing, and nothing's changing. And you wonder why your children are leaving the faith. This is full of beautiful lessons, and if pupils make it their study in their primary grade below, they will prepare for the higher grade above. The time of trouble, such as never was, is soon to open upon us, and we shall need an experience. What's an experience? Something you live through, something you're physically feeling, which we do not now possess. If you don't possess it, you need to go find it, which many are too indolent to obtain. So the time of trouble such as never was, that's the time of the plagues. There's something you need physically that you're actually able to get, but you're too lazy to do it, or your job is in the way, or your kid's soccer practice, or your wife's this, or whatever it is. I don't care what it is. God doesn't care either, because he's asking you something simple to do, and that is get ready. Get the experience needed. What is the experience? The experience that you can't get unless you're in the country. What is that word country? That is something that we're still going to discuss, and which many are too indolent to obtain. It is often the case that trouble is greater in anticipation than in reality. But this is not true of the crisis before us. The most vivid presentations cannot reach the magnitude of the ordeal. In that time of trial, every soul must stand for himself before God. Though Noah, Daniel, and Job were in the land, as I live, saith the Lord God, they shall deliver neither son nor daughter, they shall but deliver their own souls by their righteousness. What was considered righteousness for Noah? The fact that he was obedient and built a boat. That was righteousness. And people think, oh, but you're just, you're all about, you need to be more about the character. You don't have the character if you're not obedient. Just because you're talk nice in church, you don't have God's character if you're not obedient to God. You're not walking with God. When you walk with God, that means you're in agreement with God. How can two walk together unless they're agreed? And if he says, be in the country, be out of the way of destruction, so that you're not destroyed with the wicked and become part of the wicked, and you're not obedient to that, you don't have his character. This is the thing it's hard for me to understand. And it's so troubling, because I'm trying to figure out the nicest way to convey all these things, but it weighs on me so heavy, because I get it. It's not easy. I didn't come from tons of money. How did I get to the country? People make tons of assumptions, and I get it. But what's more important? Is your situation more important, or obedience more important? I mean, if you believe God is going to somehow cause a miracle to protect you in a place where he said he's sending destruction, that seems way less believable than you saying, God, I want to be obedient, help me be obedient, and him making a way for that. I mean, two totally different scenarios here. You asking him to protect you in disobedience or protect you in obedience. I'm going to put my money on protecting you in obedience, because that is consistently what the Bible has been saying. And I don't want to see anybody unready for the events. But there's an experience that we do not have, because we're not willing to get it. And it's not that hard to get. I mean, there's so many opportunities for people to get this. The problem is they're not willing to lose anything to get the opportunity and to gain the experience. It will then be time to leave the large cities, preparatory to leaving the smaller ones, for retired homes in secluded places among the mountains. Okay. Secluded places, retired homes among the mountains. Does it say for a small acreage in the forest randomly? Does it say in the prairies? It doesn't say any of this. We need to read it as it's written. And we're supposed to be in the mountains. And I understand this is like mind blowing. This is going to cause all the hate to come in. But I'm not going to be the one who was not warning the people of what is really going to come, and the blood's on my head, because I care too much about everybody listening. You need to move. If you have to move cities, you have to get out of the city. If you have to move states, you might have to move states. If there's no mountains in your state, you leave the state. If there's no mountains and secluded places, secluded, Look at that's a strong word. There's no secluded places among the mountains in your country. You might have to be like Abraham and move countries. And I'm being real right now. I'm not even joking. The time of trouble is so severe, and the events going to happen are going to be so incredibly fearful. But if we're obedient, we can escape them. We don't have to be in the destruction that's coming upon these cities, but we got to be away from it. We have to physically do this. We spiritualize everything. Oh, there's destruction coming, but we're going to be protected and everything else. You're protected by your obedience because you take, okay, God says there's a destruction there and there and there. So how about I don't be there and there and there? That's what it looks like. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. And you might have to move. I mean, there's definitely people who are going to have to move. We're even told that islands are going to be removed and fled away. And most of the islands do not have suitable places for people to have secluded places among the mountains where they can grow their own food year round and have everything that they need to do in order to survive this. Because this is a time that's beyond any prepper, that's beyond any situation that like Y2K or any of these people have been preparing for. This is something called the time of trouble. This is not, a solar flare. This is not, just one isolated situation. This is global meltdown. This is global war, wars and rumors of wars globally. And I can prove that straight from the Bible. We need to be away from where the destruction is going to be. I mean, this is non-negotiable. We need to be out as far away as possible. Retired homes in secluded places among the mountains. And we need to leave the large ones and leave the small ones, the cities, that is. Leave the large cities and leave the small cities. Now, we had been gathering some things to share with you, the difference between large and small cities and all of this, and we can talk about that. But I just want you to really understand the importance of being out. You need to get out. And if you don't know how, you're in the right place, because this is exactly what we're trying to do, is help you know how to get out. We have the chat. Put your questions there. Call our office. We're working on things right now as we speak. Booklets, so it's physical, that you can get, courses, even live consultations where we'll be able to help you make those moves. It's possible for everyone. God doesn't ask something that's impossible. Doesn't matter if you're disabled. It doesn't matter if you're older. It doesn't matter if you're younger. Whatever it is, there's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And where there's a God, there's even more ways. There's 1,000 ways that you know not. When the flood was coming, there was no person in a wheelchair who didn't get on there. Noah would have pushed them up himself. And it doesn't have to be your boat. It just has to be a boat. So when we're talking about getting in the country, it doesn't have to be yours in the way that you want it, in the house that you want it, and everything that you want. What it needs is the fundamental staples to qualify as a country place, which maybe that is what we should do in our next study, is we could talk about that. What are the qualifying factors of what you need and what that property needs to look like? Because some people, we can't afford that. We can't this, we can't that. Maybe you're looking in the wrong place. Maybe you're looking in too expensive of an area. And if it's too expensive, it's probably too populated, it's probably too popular. And you should be looking at a place that isn't so popular or populated. Like, go where people are not wanting, and it's going to be a lot cheaper and it's going to be a lot safer. It's going to be a lot farther from where the destruction is taking place, because that's what we're trying to avoid. Because God doesn't need dead preachers. He needs living preachers who are willing to give the loud cry message during the final events without being dead all at the same time. And it's not our decision to die a martyr. This is not something that we're being asked to prepare for. We're being asked to prepare for country living, not dying. And I know we get into the weeds here, but we're supposed to be living examples. 144,000 is a living group of people. And if you want to be part of that, you have to be alive, which means you're not in the destruction of the wicked, in the persecution of the wicked. So these are really critical thoughts. We have to analyze them carefully. There is destruction coming, and there's many cities that this is going to come to. We could list off Nashville, Chicago. There's many cities that are named specifically that are going to have destruction. And it's going to be at a time and an hour that no one notices. But also, one of the earlier quotes that we read was that these are a warning of repentance, which means this is not during the time of the plagues. This is before the time of the plagues, while probation is still open. So it's a probation open time frame, which means this is during now. This could start happening at any moment. And there already is cities that are being destroyed. But we're going to start seeing this over and over and over. And it's not just going to be, brimstone from heaven. It's going to be wars that are destroying these cities. It's going to be natural disasters. It's going to be such destruction and violence that we've never seen before. And that is not where we should be located. I mean, it doesn't get any more clear than looking at all the Bible examples and showing that we need to be ready. We need to get out of the city so that we can prepare for all the other events that are going to happen. The destruction of the cities is a warning. And then there's the no buying, no selling. How are we going to live through that unless we can grow our own food, have our own wood supply so we can keep warm, cook our food, sanitation, all of these things. And it seems like a lot, but that's exactly what we're here doing. That's exactly why we're trying to help and why we're doing these studies. So you guys don't feel alone and you don't feel scared. There's a series, and I'm just going to say it. It's a crazy idea that I would absolutely love to do, except I'd have to take a hiatus and practically not work at Amazing Discoveries for a year. And I would totally do this because I know this is possible. Go into an apartment in the city somewhere, start with zero money in my bank account, and make the move from city all the way to country. If there's someone willing to do that journey and we'll film it, let us know. And I'll guide you through the whole entire process. This is totally doable. I mean, my story is no different. That's what I literally went through. I had no money, started from zero, did not get any, help from anyone, and now have beautiful country property. There's, I don't have a house yet, but things are there and in place, and I have the skills that I've been learning and taking the time to do it in order to get things ready. I've taken personal time to go learn from people who know what they're doing and put my time for free. Just say, I will help you if I can learn. 3 months here, a month here, several months here, days here, weeks here, doing it. Really important. These skills are invaluable. You can't put a value on them because it's your life, your children's lives, your family's lives, and it's the way that you're going to not receive the mark of the beast. Because if you're so pressured because your kids are starving and you didn't prepare, you didn't have the character needed, because the character was doing the hard thing now, which is moving, when things are easy, not when it's hard. Because when it's hard, it's going to be a different story. So I really pray for everyone who is joining us and listening to this right now, whether it's later or whenever it is. Please share this study. This message needs to go out. People need to start moving. And the problem is, there's a quote that says, when people want to leave, they won't be able. And when it says they won't be able, it's not that they're going to be saved and won't be able, it's they're going to be lost and won't be able, because they didn't be obedient when they were asked to. The children of Israel, they were told, take Jericho. They said, we're too scared. And then they're like, we'll do it now. And God says, too late. So we don't want to be waiting until the door is closed. Until the door is closed, it's not too late. So I know there's probably 1,000 comments of people saying it's too late. We're too close to the end. You know how long it takes to prepare for country property. We didn't grow up that way, and things are happening too fast. And law is going to be tomorrow. Then everything else. No, that's not true. If the door is not closed, it's time to move. As long as you can see the door open on the ark, you run towards that door. If you see Noah walk in the door and you know that he's been saying rain is coming and you see that door open, you don't be like, I'll wait and see. No, you run to that door. You say, I don't got much time. I'm running. And God will bless. He will help you in a few months to what it took me years to learn. As long as you're willing to make that move. So I think it's time that we go to some of our questions. Let's go to some questions. Okay. Gunter Weiler, question, but how far do we need to flee? 100 kilometers or more? We are all entangled with family. It's a hard situation. And it's a very interesting question. How far do we need to flee? And by fleeing, I'm assuming you're meaning fleeing to your country, property, your secluded home in the mountains, not fleeing into the mountains during the time of Jacob's trouble, where we're just fleeing into the bush. How far do you need to go? Well, first you have to do several things. One is identify what a city is, how large a city is, what's a large city, and then what is the distances, which is exactly what your question is here. So let me just pull something up. See if I can do this quickly. I'm going to try and get you the best answer I can here right now. And it should be pretty clear, a pretty clear answer. Okay. I'm going to open up my handy dandy whiteboard to answer this question. Okay. So we have several things here to break this down. So we have the city, and we need to know how far do we need to go out. Is it 10, miles/kilometers for those in Canada? Is it 100? Is it, 300? We can ask all of these things. Okay. I want to read a quote. This quote is from Christian Experience and Teachings, page 217. Christian Experience and Teachings, page 217. Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento, Woodland, and the large cities in the United States, so all those ones that were just mentioned are large cities, must hear the message of truth. Go forward. God will work with great power if you walk in all humility of mind before him. Okay. So Oakland, let's just write this. You know what? Yeah, we're going to go above here. Okay. Oakland, San Fran, Sacramento, Woodland, and these are all classified as large cities in this time, which, just to emphasize this, was in 1874. Okay? This was written in 1874. Now, here's the crazy part. Now, Woodland was around 100 to 125,000 people. That's a large city. Most people think 9 million, like New York. This is 100 to 125,000. That's a large city. San Francisco, 149,000. Large city. Hold on to your seatbelts. Whoops. I did this wrong. It was San Francisco. That was 149. Sacramento was 17 to 18,000. Large city. Oakland, and there's a couple varying sources here, was 10 to 34,000. Large city. These are the large cities talked about. Now, if you're in an extremely large city compared to any of these numbers, why is that? That you feel it's not a large city, these numbers. It's because you're desensitized. It's the same reason that Lot could not see the wickedness of the city. I grew up, okay, here's a little story about MacKenzie Drebit, in a place called Saskatchewan, Canada, and in a tiny little town called Hudson Bay. Okay, now you can all look that up on the map and you'll find out where I was from. And we'll erase that now. If you didn't catch it, you didn't catch it. And there was 1.7, drum roll, thousand people in my hometown. When I went to a place 1.5 hours away to get to a town that was around 3,000, that was a good sized city. And then I had to go, well, let me do it like this. 3.5 hours to get to a city. How large? I don't even remember. She's going to check for me. Let me read one more quote while she's checking this. You can just tell me the number. Okay. 288K. It took me 3.5 hours to get there. And that was a big city. I mean, we're not even talking, like Vancouver, which is millions, and, LA, which is millions. Those are just like astronomical space numbers from my perspective. Now, if you're in something that is 9 million and you're going down to here, that feels tiny, right? It's all about perspective. So, what matters is God's perspective, right? My perspective doesn't matter. Your perspective doesn't matter. God's perspective matters. This is from Evangelism, page 397.3. And you know what? Let me put the quotes. I'll write the quotes here. So one was from Christian Experience and Teachings, page 217. And then the next one is Evangelism 397.3. Okay? Every effort possible should now be made to advance the work of God. And I'm going to continue. Most earnest efforts should be put forth in Washington, in Boston, in Nashville, St. Louis, New Orleans, and in many other large cities. So these are also classified under the large cities category. So we have Washington. And we really don't even have to go through this because we have the other ones. St. Louis. You know what? You can look this up. I'm going to put it right here on the screen again. You guys go mark down these quotes right here, okay? Write this on your paper, do whatever you need to do, and take a screenshot and look up these quotes, and then go look up the date the quote was made and the population of those cities. And you'll see all the context there, okay? So now we got to talk about how far to actually finish answering their question. Okay, let me see here if I can quickly find a quote here. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the live stream, but a loon was just calling. Okay, give me one moment. I'm just finding here. Okay, here's one. This is 20 LTMS, letters and manuscripts. Letter 29, 1905. Sorry for the long reference. Paragraph 6. Okay? For a long time, we have seen the importance of having a sanitarium established near Los Angeles. A restaurant and treatment rooms have been conducted there, but it is impossible to care properly for patients in the heart of the city, where the din and confusion can plainly be heard. Recently, a large building 8 miles from the city in a beautiful retired spot has been purchased by our people for the sanitarium work. So we have 8 miles from the city. But what does that mean? I mean, if we were talking 8 miles now, it wouldn't mean a whole lot. You'd barely get out of the city driving 8 miles. But what is the context? Did they have a car to drive? This is the thing. They didn't have, cars like this. What they were using was a horse and a wagon, right? So you have your wagon here with your horse attached on the front of it. what was the average speed that you were going to go in a horse and a wagon on these roads that they were driving on? Well, if you look up, any different criteria site, um, what's the speed that the animals of transportation were going, whether it was oxen or horses or mules or anything like this, depending on your load, depending on how many animals you have, it's going to vary, but it's going to be anywhere from 2 to 3.5 miles per hour. Okay, 3.5 miles an hour. Now let's just take an average of 2.75. Okay, just take an average. So if we go 8 divided by 2.75, that's going to give us roughly a 3-hour drive. That gives you a little bit of perspective now. To transport for that distance was roughly a 3-hour trip. Now, here's the point. The distance needs to be such that it's actually an encumbrance to take the trip. It can't be 15 minutes. 15 minutes, it's not hard to deal with. You can zip there and zip back. It needs to be something that's actually a deterrent, that is protecting you. It's like this barrier of time to actually venturing to go to the wicked city. So you want that time factor in there. So distance it's more about time factor than it is necessarily about distance. I mean, it takes you 2 hours to drive across Vancouver now at the rush hour, and you're not very far. So, but you need to be out of the skirts of that city and then take your measuring tape and go your 3 hours. So there's other references that I could give that were a lot more distance than this, 9 miles. Some were 20 miles needed to be away from the cities because there was other little, cities along the way. So that stretches your time factor, because how most maps look, let's say this is, a map here, and there's a big city here and another big city here, and you're going to the country here. Okay, we're gonna call this where this tree is. This is the country. It usually doesn't look like that. Large city, nothing, country, and it's 3 hours. Usually it looks like this, because the city is now trail, right? I mean, LA, Orange County, everything's just mushed together. Vancouver, Burnaby, Delta, Surrey, all of this is just one flow. So, and then it starts to peter out, like this. So you don't want to be calculating from like right here, because you really didn't leave the city until you're getting more around here. So take all those factors into consideration, that you're outside, this distance of around 3 hours from a large city. And then you want to be factoring out from there. I can't tell you exactly, this size city, this distance. There's other factors that play into that. Also, your surroundings, like, people around you, other property. Whoops. Other property. How much land you have. Are you next to, like, in Canada we call it crown land. in the America, I think they call it, what do they call it? There's another name for it. I can't remember what you guys call it down there. Um, are you on the edge of like wilderness area? Is there mountains? You know, are you close to the mountains that if you had to, you could flee into those mountains? You know, these are all factors that you need to consider in the distance. So I hope that at least gave a good start to answering your question there. Randy Howard question, what about the bedridden disabled? Again, this is where it comes to a severe matter of prayer. You need to pray. And if you have people that are willing to help you and able to help you, God will make a way for every person, exactly the timing that is necessary. The message for the Noahs, if I could call them that, who are physically able, is these people need to move. And they're supposed to make a way for the others. This is the thing, it's not a selfish deed. I mean, when Noah built his ark here, right? Here's the ark. Was it just for him and his family? Well, obviously not, because him and his family probably would have stood, about that tall. So this was bigger than needed for just them to survive this event. But everything else, land animals, all the seeds and the things that he had to collect had to go into that ark too, and he was preparing for them. This wasn't a selfish deed, it was a selfless deed. So that's part of this as well. But you need to put this to prayer, and God will make a way. He absolutely will. Okay. Let's see here. Rowan Tilbury question. The 7 last plagues are the efforts of war? ? Sores equal biological, darkness equals electrical infrastructure / internet. Then there is kinetic warfare, also missiles being fired from heaven? ? I love this question. This one I find incredibly fun. 7 plagues equal effects of war. Now, again, every word that's used, we have to define by the Bible. And we have to look at all these introspectively. And I do agree. I think that your line of reasoning here is very interesting. That sores, a lot of these things. Okay. Without me getting into a whole long discussion, because I would like to go into a whole study on this, and we will. That's part of the series here, is we're going to get to the 7 last plagues and what it all entails. I will give you a little bit of homework. Okay. If you search this up in the Spirit of Prophecy, deadly instruments of war. And I believe it phrases it like this: will be invented. Okay. And this is in connection with Armageddon and the plagues, interestingly enough. Other things you have to look at is the darkness. Okay. And I'm going to give you a little bit of homework here. So in Revelation 16, I believe it's 10. Yeah, 10. Verse 10. There was darkness. Now, if you go to Revelation 9, verse 2, there's also darkness, and what brings the darkness and what is in the darkness is now a clue to understand 16:10. And then you can tie this to the woes and actually take a look on Ellen White's chart, um, which is the 1850 chart. Okay. And you will see a lot here. Now, another aspect of this is in the Bible something called wind. Okay. Wind is a symbol of war. Wind is war. So if you search through, you're going to see many examples of this. For example, Revelation 7 has 4 winds. Okay. Isaiah 27 has a rough wind, which I believe these are the same thing. It also has an east wind. Whoops. East wind. And many other situations here. You need to look at this deeply, and we're going to cover this in another study. But there's a lot that goes into this. If we look briefly, you compare Revelation 7, okay, with Revelation 6, 7. Why did I say 7? Revelation 8 and 9 with Revelation 16. With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what are called trumpets. And here they are called last plagues. Now we have to ask the question, I made that not fit very well. Last plagues. If these are the last plague, where are the first plagues? Well, in Revelation 8 and 9, 9 verse 20, I believe it's 20, yes, 20, it says that these are plagues. These are all wars. And you will see they're exactly identical to each other. The 7 last plagues and the 7 trumpets affect the exact same areas, whether it be the rivers, the sky, all the different things. Darkness. So there's darkness in 5 here. There's darkness here. There's the Euphrates here and the Euphrates here. And 9 is like a key to unlock the secrets in Revelation 16. So we need to understand both these chapters together because they're very similar and have very similar effects. So if these were trumpets, according to Revelation 9, it says these trumpets are plagues, and they were wars. That gives us the defining factor that plagues are wars. Okay. There's a lot more to go into that, but that'll give you a little bit to look at. Okay. Sarah X Noel. Question. I have a question. When the time comes and we need to leave our homes and go to the mountains, she means like fleeing. How long are we to be away from our homes? And should we find a place a while and it mostly prepared a while? Okay. Here's the timeline. We are here. Then we have no buy or sell. Then we have close of probation. Then we have these 7 last plagues. Right here, this is the death decree. And this is where we flee. Okay? Let's zoom in now on this section right here. Okay? So we have, let me draw this a little bit differently. Hopefully I can make this clear. I've never actually gone into this close of detail necessarily. So we have 6, we have 7. Then we have the second coming, okay, SC, second coming. And right here, we have the death decree. And this is when God's people flee into mountains. And if you're fleeing into the mountains, that means you're close to the mountains to flee into the mountains. Okay, how long would this be? If we look in Revelation chapter 18, Revelation 18 says in verse, give me one moment. Okay, verse 10. Revelation 18:10 says, "Stand afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come." So it's 1 hour. Now, prophetically, that is a day for a year. So Ezekiel 4 verse 6 is 1 day equals 1 year. And 1 hour equals a 24th of a day. So now we take this 1 hour, which equals a 24th of a year prophetically, because a day equals a year, and 1 hour would be a 24th of that prophetic year, and that would equal 15 days. So we have 15 days. Now, we also have this same thing in Revelation 17. Revelation 17, and it says in verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So that 1 hour shows up again. 1 hour, which is 15 days. So we have a very special allotment of time here. And something very interesting happens. We have the 10 kings reign with the papacy. Okay? Now, these 10 kings is a very fascinating subject. There's thousands of opinions on it, but we want the Bible's opinion, and we want the truth, not just any man's version, which we unfortunately won't have time to go into today. But I will give you a hint. If you go take a look on Ellen White's chart, isn't it great that Ellen White has a chart? Also called the 1850 chart. Oh, by the way, if you'd like a copy of this chart, go to judgmentdaydocumentary.com and you can download a high quality chart, judgmentdaydocumentary.com, and you can download a high quality chart, the 1850 Ellen White chart. And she says what the 10 kings are, and it's connected to something that you would be very surprised about. So this is 15 days. During this time, God's peoples, and according to Isaiah 33, I believe. Let me just jump there. Isaiah 33. Yep. Verse 2 and 16. Talks about the time of trouble, and it also talks that our bread and water is sure. This is also the time when we are not to store up food. We're not to prepare the way we're going to flee. God's angels will lead us into the caves and wherever we need to go. Okay. Just give me one moment here. Okay. Let's go to the next question. This is from Our Little Farm. Question, Our Little Farm. How do we deal with situations where we have spouses who are not Christian and they don't want to move? Is it obeying man over God not to go? This is a great question. And this is something you really, really need to pray about. You really need to bring this to God and ask him for direction. I'm not going to tell you that in this case, you do not have to obey God, because that would not be true. If your husband was standing outside the ark, or your wife was standing outside the ark, you would still have to go in. And that's the thing. It's a hard thing. We need to be very considerate about this, but at the same time, we can't use our unbelieving spouse as a reason not to do something. We need to say, hey, God's asking me to do this, And I want you to be saved too. God's warning, these destructions are coming and we need to move. And I care about you. We need to go. If you won't go, well, I'm going to go and I'll make a way. And please come. And, it's a really tough thing, but we need to ask God and move in faith, and He will do what He needs to do to convict them. And even if they don't, it's our duty to be obedient regardless. So please get encouragement from us that it is not disregarding your spouse to obey God. If they ask you to do something that's against God, you can't do that thing. And not moving and staying in the city is not obeying God. So I feel for all you. I feel for you who has that situation, but God will give you strength. Okay. There's several questions here about disabled and moved to the country. I talked about that a little while ago. That might have been a question that came in earlier. I believe it was. But again, God will show you the time and the place, and He will have someone prepare and be able to help you. You need to pray and you need to be searching and just doing what you can, and God will make a way to get you on the ark. It doesn't have to be your ark, it just has to be a ark. And God will help you with that. Okay. Jennifer, question. During no buy, no sell, how do you get away from paying property taxes in the country? Does Ellen White or Bible talk about property taxes during no buy, no sell period? This is probably the most common thing that I hear over and over and over and over again. It's taxes. Are taxes a reason not to obey God? Well, obviously not. Here's the thing. If you're under a no buy, no sell, they ain't taking your money for taxes. The other thing is, God protects obedience. So you might say, well, if God's going to protect my property and not let them take it for not paying taxes, why couldn't He just save me in the city? Because God didn't promise that He would save you in the city. He promised He would save you in the country, on your property, in your ark. That ark that Noah built, it had no chance in the storm that was on the earth. But because he obeyed to the exact specifications that God said, built it big enough, did all these sections, prepared for 120 years, God said, you are faithful. I will see that this ship don't sink. So if we go and we get our property and, we have the wood, we're growing our own food, and we are doing all the things that we need to do, taxes is going to be like a non-even argument then. I mean, they don't take things the first year anyways from taxes, but you have to realize something else. And look up this quote. National apostasy, and this is going to be terrible. I'll show you guys how bad I can spell. Apostasy ends in national ruin. What does this mean? How am I going to do this so I can make it less? No buy, no sell. That didn't look so good. Buying or selling. Is going to cause a financial collapse. in the economy. So what's going to happen in the world is total chaos. It is going to be everywhere. It's going to be global. There's going to be war. This is what Jesus was talking about. Wars and rumors of wars. We're not even going to be concerned about this because God is going to change the events so that there's so much distraction. They are not going to be worried about your taxes on your property. All we do is be obedient and God takes care of the rest. Unknown question. What about mountain valley properties? I'm assuming what you're meaning, so here's some mountains here. I don't mean that, you need your little cabin right here, built on the side of a cliff where you're going to, walk out your front door and fall 1,000 feet. There's areas in these mountains, okay? Because you need enough land to grow. So it has to be what's called arable land. Arable land means that there's space, and it's probably going to be hilly, like this. But the mountains are in the background, all beautiful and majestic and everything. And you're actually able to grow things in this area, okay? So it's not that you're living on the side of a cliff. You're in the mountains, you're there, and then when it needs to, let's see, I'll draw a little guy running here. He can run all the way up here where God's going to open a nice little cave like he did Elijah, who, by the way, went up alive. So he's a type of the people at the end, being in the wilderness, fed, all these things. So we can run from here to here. Not necessarily that you have to live on the side of a cliff. Okay. Jeff S. Question. What is considered mountains, Appalachian, Ozarks? This is a really good question. What are mountains? Number one, they have to have caves. Okay, they have to have caves. They have to have a decent amount of elevation. And we need to go through this like biblically. They have to be rocky. That's what the Bible says, because it says the rocks will be our munitions. So these are rocky mountains. They need to have caves. They have to have elevation, all of this, because what this all ties into is our protection. Radar can't go through a mountain. All of these things can't go through mountains. This is what is going to protect us. Look at the Waldensians. Where were the Waldenses? Where were the people who fled Jerusalem? All of these scenarios, they went to rocky mountains with caves. They have to be away from the ocean. It can't be right on the ocean, because we're told that the coastlines are moving in, that there's going to be destruction on the coast. So we don't want to be like within 10 miles of the coast. I would be way more than 10 miles. I was just saying, you don't want to be right there. We want to be away from the ocean. So all these criteria, and again, we can talk about that more maybe next week, is going to be a great opportunity. What are all the defining terms that we're going to use here? So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea as well. Oh, another thing. Low population density. That is really important. Secluded. If you're not secluded, like if you go over the little hill and there's like someone right there, that's not secluded. Secluded homes amongst the mountains. So this is not where you have neighbors that you see there and you see there and you see there. You have to be secluded. If we want to take the word as it's written, which, and unless we're changing and the words don't mean what they mean in the Bible, we have to take them like that. So this is low populated areas where you're secluded, no interference of enemies, you have area to grow, elbow room. All of this factors into this. Okay. Brandon Harper, question: what about New Zealand? Though it's a large island, is it a suitable place if away from the coast to build a country outpost and retreat property? I can't say. I've never been to New Zealand. I know people from New Zealand. I hear it's a beautiful place. What I hear though is that literally it's shaken up all the time by earthquakes. Is it a large enough island? I don't know. Would I choose to go there? I'll just share what I would do. I wouldn't. I would move. Um, and that's really all I can say about that. Does it follow all these criteria? I'm not 100% sure. You would probably know better if you live there. And if you're asking the question, maybe it's because you're questioning it yourself. But yeah, that's you pray to God about that one and line up the criteria and see if that works. Rowan Tilbury. Question: is leasing to own land from family non-believers viable, even a smart move? That's a really good question. Um, that would really depend on the context. Are you going to own the land yourself after this, or are they going to be shared ownership? I would definitely not do shared ownership with non-believers because that's a very tricky situation. I would make sure that you can do that as quickly as possible. I wouldn't have a split agreement. That's for sure not. Because you're trying to minister to them. You're hoping they receive the message, but if they don't and they choose otherwise, that's going to be a really problematic situation to be in. So that would depend on the context. Sorry, I can't give you a straighter answer than that one. Okay. Catherine Hasty, I apologize. Were the cities Nashville, Chicago, etc., mentioned in the last study? Because I missed the one last week. I thought that Tennessee would be a good option. Again, you have to decide on the criterias. You have to look at all the criteria, which we'll talk about next week. No, I did not mention all the cities last week. We will possibly look at all those different cities in another study. But there's several different quotes that mention specific ones. Even Loma Linda is one, which might shock a lot of people. But Tennessee, just make sure that you have all the criteria, that there's Rocky Mountains, that there's caves, that there's elbow room, that there's plenty of land, secluded places in the mountains, that you're far enough hour-wise from the major cities. Tennessee's not very big. I think it's getting quite overpopulated, but you look and pray and ask God to give you direction with that, and yeah, be willing to go wherever He leads you, as long as you're not compromising because of any certain reasons. Okay. Roxana Liu. We bought a property sort of country in 2022, but there is no mountains around. Does that mean we need to buy another one? Excuse me. That is close to mountain. Also, what about things like shampoo, toilet paper, etc.? I I personally would say this is a fantastic stepping stone. If you're saying property sort of country, then it's probably not as far as you need to be. But good on you for making the first steps. Um, go where God leads. He's going to show you the next place. I definitely would try and be in a proximity to mountains. That's what we're told. And this is a great stepping stone. You know, if you put some effort into the property or whatever, God is going to, give you a return. Now you can practice things, practice your gardening skills, fail, kill everything in your garden. It's okay. I mean, this is the time that practice makes better. And every year you get better and you learn. It's, just don't quit, keep trying. About things like shampoo and toilet paper, I think it's great to learn how to make some of this stuff. You can make lye from wood ashes and then you can make it. Toilet paper. Um, I'm definitely one of those that would like to have that in the no buy no sell. I do not want to be without. So um, we don't really get big catalogs anymore like they did in the olden days. They used to use like Simpson, Sears, and these things as the toilet paper. Might have to think about this stuff. I'm not really into the reusable toilet paper options that some people want, where you wash it. That is each to their own. However you want to deal with that situation to raise your provisions. Okay. Let's see here. ZL2C. If the great multitude are those that accept the truth at the end, how are they supported during the no buy, no sell? I've been taught in the church that the great multitude are those that have died in Christ and resurrected. There was not a great multitude in Noah's day that accepted truth at the end. Actually, there was. There was two groups of beings that went onto the ark. One looked like you and me, and one looked like, I'm not going to do a very good job at a giraffe, but here's my giraffe, okay? There you go. And these went into the ark too. Now, why do I bring this up? If you did not, please go back to my final countdown study called 370 days. Or I think it's trapped for 370 days. And I cover this. These people here, I believe from my study, represent the 144,000 who are giving the loud cry. And the animals are the great multitude. And there's several reasons for this. Maybe we'll go through this again in another study when we talk about the 144,000, the great multitude, and the great harvest that is coming in. Because if you look in Isaiah chapter 60, I believe it's Isaiah 60. And we look at Isaiah 60. And you can just read the whole section. It's talking about the Gentiles coming, and then it starts calling them camels and other animals and creatures. Now, also, when Peter seen the sheet come down and all the animals there, he would say, don't call any man common or unclean. So the animals of all these things are all the people that are not Israel. So we have the 144,000, which are preparing the ark. They built the ark. And then the animals, which are the great multitude, who come in because of the message. They didn't help build it, but they're joining in the ark and they're inside before the door closes, and they come along for the journey. So we're not preparing for just ourselves. We're preparing for all the animals, the multitude of animals, which way outnumber uh, God's people inside of the ark. Okay. Uh, Haley Allen, what if you have a mortgage? What if you have a mortgage? Depends where your mortgage is. Your mortgage on a country property? Is your mortgage in the city? If you can sell your place in the city, that'd be great. If it's in the country, pay it off as fast as you can. I mean, Noah put all that he had, all of his dollars went into the ark. You might have to buy less of certain things. You might have to, you know, uh, go on whatever it is. Um, but just put your money towards your country place. God is going to bless, He's going to multiply, and you'll have it paid off before you can even expect. I don't want anybody to be panicked. Like I'm saying, Sunday law and, no buy, no sell is coming in like 10 days from now. That's not true. Um, if you don't have the money, basically, nobody has the money, that I personally know. I mean, some people do. Yes, they absolutely do. Most people don't have the money to buy outright a country property. Do I think it's wrong to get a mortgage? No, I don't think it's wrong. Ellen White actually did, and there's many cases of that, and we could go through that in another study. That she said it was fine as long as you have a plan and it's a country property, not a city investment property for money making. It needs to be for the right purpose, and then you have a plan to pay that off quickly and get out of debt as quickly as you possibly can. So I'm definitely not against that. We had to, when we were buying our personal property, we could not afford the whole thing, but miracle after miracle, and God helps us. And we're not done yet. Everything, building, and all of that, because we're very busy at amazing discoveries, but in God's timing. And it's not about panicking. It's just about taking every step that you can, every moment you can, and being obedience. MD, would you consider land near a volcano? Probably not. Me, probably not. I mean, I don't need to end up like Pompeii. So that's probably not something I would do. Okay. Anna Morales. It seems many of mountain ranges are within national parks and federally owned. Is that something to stay away from? Uh, that's a great question. It not necessarily. Not necessarily is that a big issue. Um, would I, prefer to have areas that aren't like that? Yes, but that doesn't mean that it'd be, if it matches all the criteria. That's the important thing. Is it matching the criteria? Are you in like a national park where there's a ton of like tourists and things? That might be a different story. So I there's plenty of mountain ranges that are not in that sort of situation, and that would be my preference. Like where we are, it's not the case. Parts of some of the mountains are, have our national forests or national parks, but it's not like touristy. There's no people going and surveying everything, all that kind of stuff. Okay. ZL2C SEA. Not sure if that's leet speech or if that's just some code name. Um, that does not appear possible for the 144,000 to support a great multitude during the no buy, no sell. Well, was it possible for Noah to feed all the animals on the ark? And the answer is 100% yes. And why? And I will show you why. And it's this very scary word. It's actually a 4-letter word. It's plan. You planned for that. So you need to think about, it's not just for you, it's for others as well. And Noah took note. He knew that he would have to take the animals, he would have to collect the seeds, he would have to do all things that we need today. So he had a plan. God told him what to do, and he obeyed the command. And I see you just had another statement here. Spirit of Prophecy says, buy a small property, not a massive farm. Never does she say don't buy a massive farm. But I also want to just contend with you on something. What is a small piece of land? And what you might think is a small piece of land is probably not what you're expecting. My understanding of a small piece of land is 40 plus acres. That's a small piece of land. To me, a large piece of land is thousands of acres. Now, this is the thing. There was a quote, and let me just read it here. Just at the time, different ones solicited us for building sites, saying, I want a small piece of land on which to build. Cannot you sell me a lot? Ever since we settled here, such requests have been made of us, but I did not want many buildings and families crowded up close to my home. And if we were to sell a piece of land to one person and refuse to sell to others, I should be regarded as unfair. Besides, we had agreed with the managers of the food factory not to contest to small lots and allow families to crowd in on every spare piece of uncultivated land. So here's what it looks like. Your land, okay? You have to have your garden area. You have to have your home area where your house is. You have to have empty land where it's just nature, just nothing. And then you need to have trees, all the criteria that we're told we need to have on a property. And this isn't the size of land that is just for you. Okay? And that's an important point I want to make, is it's not just for you. This is for you and all the people you're going to witness to, and the great multitude and the animals, all these things that are coming out. And we're not told not to buy good-sized pieces of land. That's definitely never stated. A lot of the schools, they had 300 acres, not of land, of garden. Now think of that in context of no tractors or tillers. That's a whole nother concept now that we're talking about. But this is the reality. We're supposed to be preparing for others, just like Noah built the ark. The ark was not a tiny boat. It was massive. It was a massive structure, because he was planning on it being full, on people heeding the message. And we should do the same. And God will help you find such homes outside the cities. And it's not impossible. And I want to mention something. Tiny properties are the same price as big ones. Like, it's really not a big difference. I mean, if you're buying 5 acres, that's going to be the same as 100 acres in a lot of areas. You might think in where you're looking, but maybe you need to look in a different place. Um, so that's the thing. Um, okay, there's one more question I want to take, and then we'll probably wrap up for the evening. Beth Weinhoff, but we cannot say no to fellow SDA who need refuge to move in, correct? Okay. Yes and no. You have to be very wise. You don't take any random person that just says, "Hey, help me." That's absolutely not what we're told to do. You do need to be wise. Adventists, this is something to be prayerful about. If someone is really trying, you are supposed to help them, and they really want to follow God. But if you need to really know that, and you need to have very solid agreements. I'm talking like written agreement. Here's the rules. This is how it goes. If you're here and I'm paying for this, this is your part of what you need to do. And if that is not followed, this isn't going to work. I mean, you can't have people squatting. That gets really, complicated. So you do need to be careful. You need to be wise. You need to help people that need help, but you also need to be wise in that you're not asking, allowing just anyone who's going to cause disruption onto your property, because that can be a really bad situation. So you don't want to do that. You need to be prayerful about it, and God will guide with that. He's not going to allow bad things if you're honestly praying and being wise about the situation. But we do need to prepare for others. Absolutely. Um, I mean, and let's just write some of these things down, and this is where we're going to wrap up for the evening. So it needs to be secluded. Secluded. Okay? Needs to be in the mountains. It needs to have place for a garden. And that garden is an acre per person. That's how much food it takes to feed a person for a year, is an acre of garden per one person. So times that by people in the family or in the group, and that'll give you the acres you need. So for example, you have 4 people times acre equals 4 acres. It needs to be in the Rocky Mountains. Okay? I'm not saying you need to be on a rock. I'm saying you need to be by Rocky Mountains, where there's caves. Where you don't have enemies. And we'll talk about what these enemies sort of are another time. Some of the other criteria is it cannot be in the plains. I know it's kind of the opposite of mountains, but we're going to write that. We need to have space for others. And I mean, we could keep going with several other criteria here. We need to be roughly 3 hours. Don't take this as gospel, but 3 hours from a city. And I'll just put, 100K here. Okay. We need to be, I think, yeah, secluded. Most of these are pretty good points here. If you can find places like this is what you're looking for. And they don't have to cost, millions of dollars. They need to be simple. And if it's a small house, that's fine. You're going to need, some good sheds, some shops, a root cellar, things like this. Get investing in some of these things that are going to be really important. And this is what's going to save you from the destruction that's coming, because there is destruction coming on the cities. And we need to be ready for it. And we need to be away from all the places that are going to be affected by the events that are coming. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss a video. Plus, you'll get all the resources. If you go to finalcountdown.amazingdiscoveries.org, you'll get everything there that you need. If you go to judgmentdaydocumentary.com, there you will be able to get the charts, the Ellen White chart that I was referencing, that she had laid everything out very nicely. Again, I want to really encourage you guys to get, actually we have all these different study bookmarks here. These are fantastic resources. We have the Law of God. That's a little bit hard to read there. And Miller's Rules. Please get Miller's Rules. It's not Miller's Rules because Miller invented them. It's because Miller compiled them. And there's Bible verses for each one. And this is how we need to study the closing events. We also have ones on the Sabbath. These really nice study bookmarks that you guys can get. Bible symbols. If you're wanting to know your Bible symbols, we have this one. Has the verses on there for you. We also have what does the Bible say about death? We have all these really nice resources for you guys. Plus, this topic really goes well with this booklet, Country Living. I highly recommend you get this and read through it. We're actually going to do a breakdown of this book in one of the studies because there's some fascinating points that a lot of people miss in this booklet. So go grab yourself a Country Living booklet. Thank you so much for joining us. We're probably at some point going to be shifting some of these studies to another day of the week. Stay tuned for that. You're going to want to make sure that you're there because we're going to start really digging into the how-to of everything. How are you going to be ready? What do you need to do? How are you going to do it? We're going to talk money. We're going to talk, costs. We're going to go through all of this. Plus, farm.amazingdiscoveries.org. If you want to learn how to do this and you want to come here to learn that, we're offering this. You can see what we're doing. You can learn how to grow. You can learn what it takes to actually do this. And if you want to make a business out of that, we can show you that too, how to support yourself in the country. farm.amazingdiscoveries.org. God bless, and we'll see you in the next video.